The boy screamed again. Another caregiver fled the penthouse in tears. 17 had failed. From the window, Kangdae watched his 5-year-old son thrash against the marble floor, silent rage shaking his small body. 8 months without a word. 8 months since his mother died. Then the screaming stopped. Kangdae froze. In the garden below, the boy stood barefoot in the dirt, staring at a woman in muddy overalls. A stranger, the new gardener. Slowly, without fear, his son reached out and took her hand. Kangdae's blood ran cold, because his child had never touched anyone since the funeral. Kangdae is a man who doesn't believe in miracles, but he's about to risk his entire empire on one. This isn't just a story about a broken family. It's a war for the heart of a child. Before we reveal the chilling message Kangdae receives that changes everything, we want to know who is standing with us in the garden today. Drop a comment below with the city or country you are watching from. If you believe some bonds are worth any price, hit that subscribe button and join our community for the full journey of the child's choice. Kangdae stood frozen at the floor-to-ceiling window of his Boston penthouse, watching the impossible unfold in the garden below. His son, his 5-year-old son, who hadn't spoken a word in 8 months, who screamed and kicked every nanny, therapist, and caregiver out of their lives, was holding hands with the new gardener, a woman he'd hired 3 days ago without even meeting her properly. The woman was tall, dark-skinned, wearing dirt-stained overalls and work gloves that she'd pushed down to her wrists. She was crouched beside Minho, pointing at something in the soil, and his son was smiling. Actually smiling. "Who is that?" Kangdae's voice came out sharper than he intended. His assistant, young Sue, glanced up from his tablet. "The gardener, sir." Adele. "No, wait, her file says Amara. Actually, I don't care what you think, I need her name. Now." Young Sue scrolled frantically. Senna Okafor, 28 years old, from Cameroon originally, but she's been in the States for 6 years. Background check came back clean. Horticulture degree from UMass. Previous employer said she was quiet but excellent with plants. Kangdae watched as Senna handed Minho a small trowel. His son took it without hesitation, without fear, without the wild panic that had become his default state since that night, since the accident that took his mother. "Get her up here. Sir, you heard me. Now." 10 minutes later, there was a soft knock on his office door. Kangdae didn't turn from the window. "Come in." The door opened, and he heard light footsteps, then silence. He let the silence stretch, a tactic that usually made people nervous, made them talk too much, reveal too much. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Kang?" Her voice was softer than he expected, with a slight accent that rounded her vowels. He turned slowly, deliberately. Senna stood just inside the doorway, still in her work clothes, her hands clasped in front of her. She wasn't fidgeting, wasn't looking around the expensive office with wide eyes like most people did. Her gaze was steady, calm, meeting his without challenge but without submission either. She was unexpected. High cheekbones, natural hair pulled back in a simple bun, a scar on her left eyebrow that gave her face character. No makeup, no jewelry, except small silver hoops in her ears. "How did you do it?" he asked. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Do what?" "My son. How did you get him to trust you?" Something flickered in her dark eyes. Pity, maybe? He hated pity. "I didn't try to get him to do anything, Mr. Kang. I was just planting bulbs. He watched for a while, then came closer. I showed him what I was doing. He seemed interested." "He doesn't get interested. He doesn't interact. He barely eats." Senna was quiet for a moment, then she said gently, Maybe he just needed someone who wasn't trying to fix him." The words hit harder than they should have. Kangdae's jaw tightened. "I've hired 17 caregivers in 8 months. Child psychologists, specialists, people with decades of experience. And they all probably tried very hard to help him, I'm sure." Her voice remained soft but firm. "But sometimes children don't need help. They just need space to heal in their own way. He studied her for a long moment. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people are. I work with soil and plants, Mr. Kang. I'm not easily intimidated by much else. A small smile touched her lips. Besides, you're not the scariest thing I've encountered. Try dealing with Japanese beetles destroying a month's worth of work. Despite himself, despite everything, Kang Dae felt the corner of his mouth twitch. Just barely. I'm doubling your salary. Her smile faded. I don't understand. Whatever I'm paying you to. Tend the gardens. I'm doubling it. But I need you to spend time with Minho. Not as a therapist or a nanny. Just whatever you were doing down there, keep doing it. Mr. Kang, I'm not qualified to... I don't care about qualifications. I care about results. And in 8 months, you're the only person who's gotten through to him. He paused, and something in his voice shifted, became almost vulnerable. Please. Senna looked at him for a long moment, and he found himself wondering what she saw. The ruthless businessman? The desperate father? Both? Okay, she said finally, but on one condition. No one gave him conditions, which is, you don't hover, you don't pressure him, you let this happen naturally, at his pace. Can you do that? Every instinct in his body rebelled against giving up control, but when he thought of Minho's smile in the garden, yes, then we have an agreement. She held out her hand. He looked at it, at her dirt-stained fingers, at the simple directness of the gesture. Then he shook it, and her grip was surprisingly firm. Over the next 3 weeks, Kang Dae found himself watching the garden more than working. Senna came every morning at 8, and by 8:15, Minho would appear at the back door, waiting. She never called to him, never beckoned, just acknowledged him with a small nod and continued her work until he felt ready to join her. Some days he just sat on the grass nearby. Other days, he handed her tools. Once Kang Dae watched as Senna taught his son to identify different types of leaves, and Minho spoke. 3 words. This one's oak. Kang Dae had to grip the window frame to steady himself. But it wasn't just Minho changing. Senna had somehow, without asking permission, started transforming the sterile landscape into something alive. Wildflower patches appeared along the fence. A small vegetable garden took shape near the back wall. She'd even installed a bird feeder that attracted cardinals and blue jays. She's exceeding her scope, Young Soo mentioned one morning, disapproval clear in his tone. Then expand her scope, Kang Dae replied, not looking up from the reports he was pretending to read. He started finding excuses to go into the garden, checking the irrigation system, inspecting the fence, making phone calls while walking the perimeter. Definitely not trying to be near where Senna was working. She saw through him immediately. The irrigation system is fine, Mr. Kang, she said one afternoon, not looking up from the tomato plants she was staking. Minho was beside her, carefully tying twine under her direction. I'm not... You've checked it 4 times this week. Unless you're planning to water the garden manually, I think we're good. Minho giggled. Actually, giggled. It was such a foreign sound that both adults froze. Senna recovered first, continuing her work as if nothing extraordinary had happened, but Kang Dae saw the small smile on her face, the way her shoulders relaxed, slightly. Maybe I just wanted to see how things are progressing, he said, moving closer. She didn't sound convinced. Well, since you're here, maybe you could help. Minho and I are planting Korean perilla. I thought he might like having something from his heritage in the garden. Kang Dae's throat tightened. You know about perilla? I researched it. She finally looked at him, and her expression was gentle. I wanted to make sure I was including plants that might feel familiar to him, comforting. Something shifted in his chest, something he hadn't felt since before the accident, before his world became about survival and protecting what little he had left. Show me, he heard himself say. Senna handed him gloves and a trowel, and for the first time in months, Kang Dae sat in the dirt beside his son. His expensive suit would be ruined. He didn't care. Like this, Papa, Minho said, demonstrating how to make the hole for the seedling. Papa, not the formal habeoji that Kang Dae's mother insisted on. Just Papa. Kang Dae's hands were shaking as he followed his son's instructions, as Senna guided them both through the planting process, her voice steady and warm. When they finished, Minho's hands were covered in soil, and there was a streak of dirt across his cheek. He looked happy. He looked like a child again. Good work, Senna said, standing and brushing off her knees. Now, who wants to help me water? Me! Minho jumped up, then hesitated, looking at his father. Go ahead, Kang Dae managed. I'll watch. But as Minho ran toward the hose, Senna paused beside Kang Dae. You could help too, you know, instead of always watching. I don't want to disrupt his progress. Mr. Kang? She crouched down so they were eye level. You're his father. You're not a disruption. You're the person he needs most. He hasn't needed me in months. He barely looks at me. Because you're scared to look at him, she said quietly. He can feel that. Children always can. The accusation stung because it was true. Ever since the accident, ever since he'd failed to protect his wife, he'd been terrified of failing Minho too. Easier to hire people, to keep distance, to stay in control from behind glass windows. I don't know how to... He gestured helplessly at the garden, at his son laughing as he sprayed water on the plants. Senna's hand touched his shoulder briefly. Start small. Today you planted perilla together. Tomorrow, maybe you read him a story. The day after, maybe you eat breakfast with him. Small steps, Mr. Kang, just like Minho is taking. She left him there in the dirt, joined Minho at the hose, and Kang Dae watched them together. This stranger from Cameroon who'd somehow walked into their broken lives and started putting pieces back together. That night, for the first time since the funeral, Kang Dae knocked on Minho's bedroom door. Come in, his son's small voice called. Minho was in bed, a picture book open, on his lap. He looked surprised to see his father. I thought... Kang Dae cleared his throat. I thought maybe I could read to you, if you want. Minho stared at him for a long moment, and Kang Dae prepared himself for rejection, for the screaming that had become so familiar. Instead, Minho scooted over and patted the bed beside him. Kang Dae sat down, took the book, and began to read. His voice was rusty, uncertain, but Minho leaned against his side, warm and solid and there. When he finished the story, Minho was almost asleep. Papa? He murmured. Yes? Senna says the perilla will have purple flowers, like the ones Mama liked. Kang Dae's eyes burned. Yes, just like those. Good. Minho yawned. I think Mama would like Senna. I think so too, Kang Dae whispered, pressing a kiss to his son's forehead. But as he left the room, he realized something that both thrilled and terrified him. He liked Senna. More than liked. And that was dangerous. Because people he cared about had a tendency to get hurt. His world wasn't safe, wasn't normal, and Senna, with her gentle hands and patient heart, deserved so much better than what his life could offer. The problem started with Min Seo, Kang Dae's younger sister. She appeared at the penthouse on a Tuesday morning, 4 weeks after Senna had started spending time with Minho. Kang Dae was in a meeting with suppliers when young Sue knocked urgently. Your sister is here, sir. She's in the garden. Kang Dae's blood went cold. Min Seo didn't do casual visits. Every interaction with his sister was calculated, strategic, usually ending with her asking for money or trying to manipulate family business in her favor. He found her standing near the vegetable patch, arms crossed, watching Senna and Minho harvest tomatoes. Min Seo. His voice was flat. What are you doing here? She turned, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. Can't a sister visit her nephew? I haven't seen him since the funeral. Her gaze slid to Senna. I see you've made some interesting hiring choices. Senna straightened, tomato basket in hand, but didn't approach. She just nodded politely and said something quiet to Minho, who immediately moved closer to her. The garden looks lovely, Min-seo continued, her tone syrupy. Very rustic, earthy. Different from what Ji-hai would have chosen, but then again, she had such refined taste. Kang Dae's jaw clenched. Bringing up his dead wife was a low blow, even for Min-seo. What do you want? Mother is concerned. She heard you've been letting Minho spend time with the help instead of proper caregivers. You know how she worries about his development, especially now that he's the heir to... Don't. His voice cut like ice. Don't pretend this is about Minho. What does she really want? Min-seo's false sweetness dropped. Fine. She wants you to attend the charity gala next month. The one honoring Ji-hai's memory. The one you've been avoiding for 8 months. I'm not going. You don't have a choice, Appa. The family expects... I don't care what the family expects. He was aware of Senna trying to distract Minho, moving them farther from the conversation. I'm not parading my grief for society gossip. Min-seo stepped closer, lowering her voice. Then maybe you should care that people are talking about her. She gestured toward Senna, about how quickly you've moved on, about what kind of influence she's having on your son. The protective rage that surged through him was instant and fierce. Senna is Minho's gardener and friend, nothing more, and anyone who suggests otherwise can answer to me. Is that what you're telling yourself? Min-seo's laugh was cruel. I've seen how you look at her, Kang Dae. Everyone will see it eventually, and when they do, when they start questioning your judgment, your stability, well, you know there are family members who would love a reason to challenge your position. She left with that, threat hanging in the air, her heels clicking against the stone path. Kang Dae stood there, fists clenched, until he felt a gentle presence beside him. She's gone, Senna said quietly, and Minho is okay. He's checking the bird feeder. I'm sorry you had to witness that. Family is complicated everywhere, Mr. Kang. Trust me, Cameroonian families can be just as intense. She paused. But she's wrong, you know, about what people think. You're a good father who's trying to help his son heal. There's nothing wrong with that. He looked at her then, really looked, at the way the afternoon sun caught in her hair, at the dirt smudge on her jaw, at the kindness in her eyes that never wavered. What if she's not wrong? The words escaped before he could stop them. About how I look at you. Senna went very still. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with something unspoken. Mr. Kang. Kang Dae, he corrected softly. When it's just us, please, just Kang Dae. She swallowed, and he watched the movement of her throat. Kang Dae, she said carefully. I think we both know this situation is complicated enough without adding whatever this is. And if I wanted to uncomplicate it, if I wanted to see where this could go, then I'd say you're not thinking clearly. I'm your employee. Minho is finally making progress, and your sister just threatened you because of how things look, not even how they are. Actually, pursuing something would be... She shook her head. It would be a mess. I've built my entire life on managing messes, Senna. But this isn't just about you. Her voice was firm now. It's about Minho, about what's best for him. And what's best is stability, consistency. Not his father dating his gardener and causing family drama. She was right. Completely, frustratingly right. But it didn't stop the wanting. Then we keep things professional, he said, though the word tasted bitter. Professional, she agreed, but her eyes held regret. For 2 weeks, they maintained careful distance. Senna came at 8, worked with Minho, left by 5. Kang Dae stayed in his office, watched from windows, and tried not to think about dirt-smudged smiles and gentle hands, until the day Minho got sick. It started with a fever on a Friday night. By Saturday morning, he was burning up, crying for his mother, and nothing Kang Dae did could comfort him. Mama want Mama. I know, buddy, I know. Kang Dae pressed a cool cloth to his son's forehead, feeling utterly helpless. But Mama's not, she can't. Want Senna, Minho whimpered. Please, Papa, want Senna. Kang Dae's heart clenched. It wasn't even a work day. He didn't have her personal number. But Minho was crying, reaching for him with desperate hands. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, I'll call her." He got her number from Young Soo and dialed, feeling ridiculous and desperate. She answered on the second ring. "Hello? Senna, it's Kang Dae. I'm sorry to bother you on a Saturday, but Minho is sick and he's asking for you and I'll be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. True to her word, 23 minutes later, his doorman called up to announce her arrival. Senna appeared in Minho's doorway wearing jeans and a simple green sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. Kang Dae had never seen her in anything but work clothes. She was beautiful. "Hey, little sprout," she said softly, moving to the bed. "I heard you're not feeling well." "Senna." Minho reached for her and she sat beside him, letting him curl into her side. "Your papa said you have a fever. That's no fun." She stroked his hair gently. "But you know what? Fevers mean your body is fighting hard to get better. You're like a little warrior." "Don't feel like a warrior," Minho mumbled. "Feel yucky." "I know." She glanced at Kang Dae. "Has he eaten anything?" "He won't touch food. The doctor said just fluids and rest, but he's scared," Senna finished. "Probably remembers. Being sick before, maybe when his mother—" She didn't finish the sentence. Kang Dae nodded tightly. Ji-hai had been hospitalized before she died. Minho had visited her there, seen her weak and fading. "Minho," Senna said gently, "how about this? I'm going to stay for a while, and we're going to make today as not scary as possible. Maybe your papa can bring us some of that soup he has in the kitchen, the Korean one with the rice." "Juk?" Kang Dae asked, surprised she knew about it. "I looked up Korean comfort foods," she admitted with a small shrug. "Thought it might be useful to know." Something warm bloomed in his chest. "I'll make some." He left them there and went to the kitchen, where he made juk the way his own mother had taught him, with abalone and sesame oil. When he returned, Senna was reading to Minho from one of his books, her voice soft and rhythmic. "Food's ready." Between them, they coaxed Minho into eating half a bowl. Then Senna suggested they build a blanket fort in the living room, something softer than his bed, more like an adventure. Kang Dae found himself on his hands and knees, draping blankets over furniture while Senna supervised and Minho gave directions from the couch, his fever-bright eyes actually showing excitement. "No, Papa, that corner needs to be higher, like a castle tower." "A castle tower," Kang Dae repeated, adjusting the blanket over a lamp. "Of course." Senna caught his eye and he smiled back, and for just a moment, everything felt normal. Like they were just a family having a silly Saturday together. They settled into the fort, Minho between them, watching a cartoon on Kang Dae's tablet. Halfway through, Minho fell asleep, his head on Senna's lap. "Thank you," Kang Dae whispered, "for coming, for all of this." "He's a special kid," she whispered back, "and you're doing better than you think. The juke was perfect. The fort building, though," she grinned, "needs work." He huffed a quiet laugh. "I'll add it to my list of parenting skills to develop." They sat in comfortable silence, Minho's breathing soft between them. In the dim light of the fort, Senna's face was peaceful, relaxed in a way he rarely saw. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. "Why did you leave Cameroon?" Her expression shifted, became more guarded. "That's complicated. We have time." She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "I was engaged to a man my family approved of, a good man on paper, successful, respected, but he wanted a traditional wife who would stay home, have children, be content with his choices. And I wanted more. I wanted to study plants, to travel, to build my own life." She traced a pattern on the blanket. "When I said no to the marriage, my family was disappointed. They said I was throwing away my future for foolish dreams. So you left." "So I left, came to the States with barely anything, worked 3 jobs while getting my degree. It was hard, lonely. But it was mine, you know, my choice, my life." Kang Dae understood that more than she knew. I never had that option. I was born into this family, this business. The path was decided before I could walk. Do you regret it? I regret a lot of things, but not Minho, never Minho. He looked at his sleeping son. He's the only purely good thing I've ever done. Senna's hand moved across the blanket and her fingers brushed his. Just barely, just enough to send electricity up his arm. You're doing more good than you realize, Kang Dai. He turned his hand over, letting their palms touch. Neither of them pulled away. This is dangerous, he murmured. Probably. My family will make things difficult. My mother, my sister, the expectations. I know. And my world, it's not safe, not normal. There are things I can't explain, can't protect you from. I'm tougher than I look. He believed her, but he also knew his reality. The business he ran wasn't entirely legal. The enemies he'd made wouldn't hesitate to use anyone close to him as leverage. Senna deserved sunshine and gardens and peace, not his shadows. He pulled his hand back. I should go, Senna said softly, understanding in her voice. He's sleeping well now. The fever should break by morning. Stay, Kang Dae said before he could stop himself. Just stay until he wakes up, please. She nodded, and they sat there in the blanket fort, careful not to touch again, while Minho slept peacefully between them and the afternoon faded into evening. The charity gala honoring Ji-Hai's memory arrived like an unwanted storm. Kang Dae had tried every excuse to avoid it, but his mother had been relentless, and finally, he'd given in. One night. He could survive one night of fake sympathy and empty platitudes. What he hadn't expected was to find Senna in his penthouse when he came down the stairs in his tuxedo. She was sitting on the couch with Minho, both of them working on a puzzle, and she looked up when she heard his footsteps. Her eyes widened slightly. You look very handsome, Papa, Minho said cheerfully. Like a prince. More like a penguin, Kang Dae muttered, adjusting his bow tie. Then to Senna, I didn't know you were coming tonight. Young Sue asked if I could stay with Minho, said the regular sitter wasn't available. She stood, brushing puzzle pieces from her lap. She was wearing black pants and a soft gray sweater, her hair pulled back simply. Still, she somehow made his designer-clad social circle seem overdressed. I hope that's okay. It's more than okay. Minho's comfortable with you. That's what matters. He crouched beside his son. Be good for Senna, all right? I'll be back before you wake up. Can Senna put me to bed? She tells better stories than Mrs. Park. Hey, Kang Dae said, mock offended. What about my stories? Minho giggled. Yours are good too, Papa, but Senna does the voices. The voices. I see how it is. He planted a kiss to Minho's forehead, then stood, catching Senna's amused expression. Don't let him stay up too late. We'll be fine. Go. Do whatever it is you have to do. At the gala, Kang Dae remembered why he hated these events. The Boston Hotel ballroom was full of people who'd barely known Ji-Hai, but acted like they'd lost their best friend. His mother held court near the memorial display, accepting condolences with practiced grace. Min Seo worked the room like she was campaigning for something. And then there was Yoon-hee, Ji-hee's younger cousin, who appeared at his elbow with champagne and a sympathetic smile that didn't quite hide her calculating eyes. Kang Dae, you look well, she said, considering everything. Yoon-hee. He took the champagne to be polite. Thank you for coming. Of course. Ji-Hai was family. She moved closer, her perfume overwhelming. I've been worried about you, about Minho. I heard he's been struggling. He's doing better. Really? Because I heard you've hired some unconventional help. A gardener? Her tone suggested she knew more than she was saying. Before he could respond, his mother materialized beside them. Yoon-hee, darling, could you give us a moment? Once they were alone, his mother's pleasant expression dropped. We need to talk, privately. She led him to a quiet corner, and her first words were ice. Who is this woman spending time with my grandson? Her name is Senna. I know her name. I want to know why she's in your home alone with Minho instead of a proper nanny. Because Minho actually responds to her. Because she's helped him more in 2 months than 17 trained professionals did in 8. Because she's good for him. His mother's lips thinned. And is she good for you? What's that supposed to mean? Min Seo says you've been distracted, spending more time in the garden than managing business. That you look at this woman like what? Kang Dai's voice was dangerously quiet. Like you're forgetting your wife, your responsibilities, your position in this family. I haven't forgotten anything. Least of all that Ji-hai is dead, and I'm raising our son alone while trying to manage a business that half the family wants to steal from me. Lower your voice. His mother glanced around. People are watching. Let them watch. I'm tired of performing grief for an audience. This isn't about performance. It's about respect, honor. The life Ji-hai would have wanted for Minho. She paused, then delivered her real blow. Yoon-hee has expressed interest in helping. She was close to Ji-hai. She understands our family, our culture. She would be a much more appropriate influence. Kang Dae stared at his mother in disbelief. You're trying to set me up with Ji-hai's cousin at her memorial gala? I'm trying to ensure my grandson has proper guidance, that you have proper support, someone who understands what's expected. I don't need a wife replacement. I need my family to trust that I know what's best for my son. Do you? His mother's gaze was sharp. Because from where I stand, you're making decisions based on emotion, not logic, getting attached to inappropriate people, neglecting your duties. Senna is not inappropriate. She's kind, intelligent, and Minho loves her. That's all that matters. Minho is 5. He doesn't understand consequences, stability. What happens when this woman leaves? When she gets bored playing gardener and moves on to something else? Minho will be devastated all over again. The words hit a fear he'd been trying to ignore. What if Senna died leave? What if she decided his complicated life wasn't worth the trouble? I won't continue this conversation, he said tightly. I'm going home to my son. Kang Dae, wait. But he was already walking away, pulling out his phone to call his driver. He needed to leave, needed to get away from the manipulation and the memories and the weight of expectations he'd never asked for. When he arrived home, the penthouse was quiet. Soft light came from Minho's room. Kang Dae moved silently down the hall and found them both asleep. Minho in his bed and Senna in the chair beside him, her head tilted at an uncomfortable angle, her hand still holding the storybook. She must have been reading to him and dozed off. The sight made something in Kang Dae's chest ache. He carefully took the book from her hands, and she stirred, blinking awake. You're back early, she whispered, glancing at Minho to make sure he was still sleeping. It was not where I wanted to be. They moved to the hallway, closing the door quietly behind them. Bad night? Senna asked. My mother tried to set me up with my dead wife's cousin at said wife's memorial gala. So, yeah, bad night. Senna's eyes widened. Wow, that's really messed up, manipulative, completely inappropriate. I was going to say complicated, but those work too. She ran a hand over her hair, loosening her bun. I'm sorry, that must have been awful. She also expressed concerns about you, about your influence on Minho. Senna's expression shuddered. I see. She's wrong, but she's going to make things difficult. My family doesn't approve of anything outside their narrow view of what's acceptable. And I'm definitely outside that view. Senna, no, it's okay, I get it. She moved toward the living room to gather her things. I knew this was temporary anyway, just until Minho was stable. I can help you transition to someone more appropriate. I don't want someone more appropriate. I want you. The words came out fiercer than he intended. She stopped, her bag half-packed. Kang Dae. I know all the reasons this is complicated. I know my family will fight it. I know my life is dangerous and messy and nothing like what you probably imagined when you came to this country. But I also know that when I'm around you, I can breathe. That Minho laughs again, that you've brought light back into a house that's been dark for too long. That's not fair, she whispered. You can't say things like that. Why not? Because it makes this real? Because it means we have to make actual choices instead of pretending we don't feel what we feel. She turned to face him fully. Because I'm scared, okay? I'm scared that I'll let myself care about you and Minho, and then your family will succeed in pushing me out. Or you'll realize I don't fit into your world, or something will happen and I'll lose you both, and I don't... Her voice cracked. I don't think I could handle that. Kang-dae closed the distance between them, stopping just short of touching. I'm scared too, terrified. The last person I loved died because I couldn't protect her, because people in my world use the things you care about as weapons. Then why risk it? Because Minho needs you, because I need you. And maybe that's selfish, but I'm tired of doing what other people think is right. I want to do what feels right for once. Senna looked up at him, and in her eyes he saw the same war he was fighting. Want versus wisdom, hope versus fear. If we do this, she said slowly, we do it carefully. For Minho's sake, no rushing, no public displays that give your family ammunition. We take it slow and see if this is real or just two lonely people finding comfort. It's real, he said with absolute certainty, at least for me. For me too, she admitted quietly, but slow, Kang-dae. We have to be smart about this. Slow, he agreed, though everything in him wanted to pull her close and kiss her, until they both forgot every reason this was complicated. Instead, he took her hand, the same way he had in the blanket fort, and brought it to his lips, a gentle kiss to her knuckles, old-fashioned, respectful, but full of promise. Good night, Senna. Good night, Kang-dae. She left, and he stood in his quiet penthouse, her hand still warm in his memory, and thought maybe he could protect this. Maybe he could keep them safe. Maybe this time, love wouldn't end in loss. But then, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Leave the gardener alone, or she'll discover exactly how dangerous your world really is. You have 1 week to end it. A concerned party. His blood went cold. They were already being watched, already being threatened, and Senna had no idea what she was really getting into. Kang-dae didn't sleep that night. He traced and retraced the threatening message, but whoever sent it had used a burner number, untraceable. By dawn, he'd made a decision. He would increase security around Senna without telling her. Let her think things were progressing normally while he handled the danger in the shadows. Except Senna was more observant than he'd anticipated. There's a car that's been following me, she said 3 days later, meeting him in the garden while Minho was at a play session with a therapist. Black sedan, different drivers but always the same. Car, want to tell me what's going on? Kang-dae cursed internally. It's just a precaution. Against what? My life isn't normal, Senna. There are people who might try to use you to get to me. The security is to keep you safe. Her expression hardened. You should have told me. You should have asked if I wanted protection instead of just assigning strangers to watch my every move. I was trying to protect you without scaring you. Well, it didn't work. I'm scared and angry. She crossed her arms. What exactly are we dealing with? And don't give me vague answers. If I'm in danger, I deserve to know why. He'd known this conversation would come eventually. My family business isn't entirely legal. We have competitors, enemies, people who would hurt anyone close to me if they thought it would give them leverage. You're talking about organized crime. I'm talking about survival in a world that doesn't play by normal rules. A world I was born into, not one I chose. He ran a hand through his hair. This is why I hesitated, why I knew getting involved with you was dangerous, because the moment you became important to me, you became a target. Senna was quiet for a long moment. I appreciate the honesty. Finally. But here's my honesty. I didn't leave Cameroon, leave my family, work myself to exhaustion for 6 years just to let someone else control my choices. If you want this, want us, then you treat me like a partner, not a fragile thing to protect. I don't think you're fragile. I think you're incredibly strong. But that doesn't mean I won't do everything in my power to keep you safe. Fine, keep me safe, but keep me informed. No more surprises, no more decisions about my life without consulting me. She stepped closer. Deal? Deal. He wanted to pull her into his arms, but they were still in view of the house, still careful. Can I take you to dinner? Somewhere private where we can actually talk without worrying about cameras or family spies. Smile tugged at her lips. Are you asking me on a date, Kang Dae? I'm asking you to let me do this properly, the way I should have from the beginning. Then yes, I'd like that. He took her to a small Korean restaurant in Cambridge that Friday night, a place he'd discovered in college, before his life became all business and obligations. The owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Cho, greeted him like family and led them to a private room in the back. So this is where Kang Dae comes to hide, Senna teased, settling onto the floor cushion. I like it. It's cozy. It's one of the few places I can be just me, not the boss, not the heir, just someone who really likes good bulgogi. They ordered way too much food, and Senna tried everything, her face lighting up at flavors she'd never experienced before. Kang Dae found himself watching her more than eating, memorizing the way her nose scrunched when something was too spicy, the delighted sound she made when trying the japchae. Okay, your turn, she said, pointing her chopsticks at him. Try some of this. She held out a piece of beef wrapped in lettuce. He leaned forward and let her feed it to him, and the intimacy of the gesture made his heart stutter. Her fingers brushed his lips, and her eyes darkened slightly before she pulled back. Good? She asked, her voice a bit breathless. Perfect. They talked for hours, about her childhood in Yaoundé, about the mango trees in her grandmother's yard, about his memories of visiting Korea as a kid before everything became complicated, about Minho's progress, about the garden plans for spring. I want to create a butterfly habitat, Senna said, her face animated. Minho would love watching the caterpillars transform. It's like magic, but real. You make everything sound magical, Kang Dae said softly, like the world is full of wonder instead of just problems to solve. The world is full of wonder. You just have to look for it. She reached across the table and took his hand. Even in complicated situations, even in Boston penthouses with family drama and organized crime, he threaded his fingers through hers. How are you so calm about all of this? My world would terrify most people. Who says I'm not terrified? She smiled ruefully. I'm just choosing to focus on what matters. Minho, you, the possibility that maybe this could actually work. I don't deserve you. Good thing it's not about deserving. It's about choosing. And I'm choosing this. Choosing you. She squeezed his hand. Scary parts and all. The moment felt suspended. Perfect. Like something fragile and precious. Kang Dae brought her hand to his lips again, pressing a longer kiss to her palm this time, then to her wrist where he could feel her pulse racing. I'm going to do everything I can to make you happy, he promised, to keep you safe, to be worthy of this choice you're making. Just be honest with me, that's all I need. They left the restaurant hours later, and Kang Dae drove them to the Charles River, where they walked along the waterfront despite the November chill. Senna tucked herself against his side, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and for a few stolen hours, they were just two people falling in love. But reality came crashing back the next morning when Young Soo appeared at his office door, face grim. We have a problem, sir. It's about Min Seo. Kang Dae looked up from reports. What now? She's been meeting with members of the Park faction, the ones who've been trying to undermine your control since your father died. That's treason against the family. It gets worse. She's been feeding them information about your schedules, your business dealings, and, Young Soo hesitated, about Senna. Kang Dae was on his feet immediately. What kind of information? Where she lives, her routines, her immigration status. Young Soo pulled up files on his tablet. I think they're planning to use her against you, either to discredit you or as direct leverage. The rage that filled Kong Dae was cold and absolute. His own sister was putting Senna in danger out of petty jealousy and ambition. Get me everything on who she's been meeting with. Every conversation, every plan, and double Senna's security detail. I want someone on her 24/7. Already done, sir, but there's something else you should know. Yoon-hee has been involved too. Ji-hai's cousin? The one my mother's trying to push at me? The same. Apparently, she and Min Seo have formed an alliance. Yoon-hee wants your position and your money. Min Seo wants control of the family business, and they both see Senna as the obstacle they need to remove. Kang Dae's hands clenched into fists. They're going to regret this, all of them. Sir, perhaps you should consider distancing yourself from Senna, just temporarily, until we can neutralize the threats. Absolutely not. I'm not abandoning her because my family is full of vipers. He grabbed his coat. I'm going to her apartment now, and then I'm going to have a conversation with my sister that she won't forget. But when he arrived at Senna's small apartment in Somerville, what he found made his blood boil. Someone had spray-painted slurs across her door, racist, hateful words that made him see red. Senna was standing in the hallway with her landlord, arms wrapped around herself, trying to stay calm. Senna. He was beside her in seconds, his hands on her shoulders. Are you all right? Did you see who did this? I'm fine, just shaken. The landlord is reviewing security footage. She looked up at him, and he saw the fear she was trying to hide. This is because of us, isn't it? Because of your family. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to find who did this and make sure they never Kang Dae. Her hand on his chest stopped his tirade. Getting angry won't help. Just help me clean it up, please. So he did. He sent his driver to get supplies, and they spent the next hour scrubbing paint off her door while her landlord filed a police report. When they finished, Kang Dae said, "Pack a bag. You're staying at the penthouse until this is resolved. I can't just move in with you. Yes, you can, and you will, because I'm not leaving you vulnerable while my family wages war on us." His voice softened. "Please, Senna, let me do this. Let me keep you safe." She must have seen something in his eyes because she nodded. Okay, but just until things settle down. Things didn't settle down. They got worse. The next week, immigration officers showed up at the garden asking questions about Senna's work visa. Kang Dae's lawyers handled it, but the message was clear. Someone was trying to get her deported. Then Minho started having nightmares again, bad ones. And when Kang Dae finally got him to talk about it, Minho said, "Aunt Min Seo said Senna is going to leave us, that she doesn't really care about me, that she's just pretending." Kang Dae saw red. He stormed to his sister's apartment that same night, bypassing her doorman with a look that could shatter glass. Min Seo answered the door in a silk robe, wine glass in hand. "Appa, what a surprise. You went after my son. You poisoned his mind with your lies. I just told him the truth. That woman is using you both for money and status. Once she gets what she wants, Senna doesn't want anything except to be left alone to do her job and care about people she loves. Unlike you, who wants power so badly you'd betray your own family to get it." Min Seo's eyes narrowed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The Park faction, Yoon-hee, the information you've been selling. Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" For the first time, his sister looked uncertain. You can't prove anything." "I don't need to prove it to destroy you. One word from me and you're cut off from the family completely. No money, no status, no protection from the people you've been dealing with who will turn on you the second you're no longer useful. You wouldn't do that to family. You stopped being family the moment you threatened my son's happiness, the moment you tried to hurt Senna." He leaned closer. "Stay away from them, both of them, or I will make sure you regret every choice that led you here." He left her there, pale and shaking, and drove back to the penthouse where Senna was reading to Minho. She looked up when he entered, saw something in his face, and said, "Minho, baby, let's finish this story tomorrow, okay? It's past bedtime anyway." Once Minho was settled, she found Kang Dae on the terrace, staring out at the city lights. "What happened? I confronted Min Seo, made it clear what would happen if she kept coming after us. Did it work? I don't know. Probably not. She's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. He turned to face her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry my family is like this. I'm sorry you have to deal with threats and vandalism and immigration harassment because you had the misfortune of caring about me. Senna moved closer, her hands coming up to frame his face. Stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault. You didn't choose your family. You didn't ask for this life. But you are choosing to fight for us, for Minho, and that means everything. I love you, he said, the words falling out before he could stop them. I know it's too soon and everything is a mess, and we should probably wait. But I love you, Senna, and I need you to know that. Her eyes filled with tears. I love you too, so much it scares me. He kissed her properly and Senna chuckled lightly. We're really doing this, aren't we? Taking on your entire family and whoever else tries to stop us? We really are. He pressed his forehead to hers. But we're doing it together. No more handling things alone. No more secrets. Together, she agreed. And for the first time since this whole complicated mess began, Kangdae felt something like hope. Because love wasn't about perfect circumstances or easy choices. It was about finding someone worth fighting for and refusing to let go, even when the world tried to tear you apart. 3 months later, Min Seo's schemes had been neutralized. Yoon-hee had moved to California after Kangdae made it clear she had no future in Boston, and his mother had grudgingly accepted that Senna wasn't going anywhere. The immigration issues were resolved with help from lawyers who actually cared about justice instead of money. Minho was thriving, talking constantly, laughing, making friends at school, and every night he insisted both Kangdae and Senna tuck him in together. On a warm spring afternoon, Kangdae and Senna stood in the butterfly habitat she'd created, watching monarchs emerge from their chrysalises, while Minho narrated every detail with pure wonder. Papa, look, this one is trying to fly. I see it, buddy. That's amazing. Senna leaned against Kangdae's shoulder, and he kissed. Her temple breathing in the scent of soil and flowers that always clung to her. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For not running away when things got hard, for loving us anyway, for bringing magic back to our lives. She smiled up at him, and in her eyes, he saw their future. Maybe marriage someday if she'd have him, maybe more children, definitely more gardens and butterflies and moments like this. You make it easy to stay, she said simply. And as Minho called them over to see another butterfly taking flight, Kangdae thought about how his son had chosen Senna first, that day in the garden, how a child's fearless heart had led them all to exactly where they needed to be. Sometimes the best choices were the ones that made no sense on paper, but made all the sense in your heart. So if you stuck around for this whole story, thanks for letting me share how a Korean businessman, a Cameroonian gardener, and a brave little boy became a family that nobody expected but everybody needed. Drop a comment if you believe in love that fights for what matters. Hit subscribe if you want more stories about real people facing real challenges. And remember that sometimes the person who changes your life shows up covered in dirt with soil under their fingernails and courage in their heart.